Hi, and welcome to the Keys to the Future podcast. We're here today to discuss shared ownership and your route to home ownership. And to do that, we've got two experts from Places for People, the UK's largest social enterprise. We've got Jennifer Cobley and we've got Regina Salvador Davis. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi Dave, thanks
Um,
for having us.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. So just to kick off today, I think it's really important to understand what exactly shared ownership is. So Jen, could you just take us through how you describe shared ownership to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dave. So, shared ownership is people's route to the market. So, effectively, you are purchasing a share of a property and renting the remainder back from a registered provider or a housing association. It is your route to getting onto the market. So, you're talking a smaller deposit, often lower than market rent outgoings per month, and your step onto that property ladder.
It's a great scheme for those who are renting and who can't afford to save up for those big beast of deposits that you need, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand deposits. It's 5% usually of the share that you're buying, which is probably an average of like 5 to 6k
Yeah.
in London.
And how does shared ownership then differ to private renting?
You've got security of tenure. So no landlord over your head, month to month, wondering if they're going to give you your notice. So really, you're securing the tenure. You get freedom over decorating the property the way that you want to live in it. This really is yours to make your own.
And also, I think, I think people have this stigma about shared ownership where you're locked in. But if you think about it as like an enhanced renting option, where you're if you think about the amount of money you're laying down when you're renting in London, right? Your 6 weeks deposit, your six
Exactly.
weeks
Yeah.
rent in advance, it kind of equates like similar to what you would do for shared ownership. Why not do that when you don't have to move in 12 months' time if your landlord wants to sell?
You're also benefiting, though, from the market moves. Prices go up. We know we're in a rising market, despite what the media says. Actually, you benefit from that. You sell, 3, 4 years down the line after moving in, you do benefit from that price appreciation. And that can be a lot of money in your pocket, which gets you onto the open market and out of the shared ownership cycle.
It's that silent investment that's happening in the background without you even knowing it.
Definitely.
Let your money work for it.
Yeah, money going into your pocket, not
Yeah.
into someone else's.
Absolutely.
I think it's really easy to talk about. Shared ownership is clearly a great product. What are some of the downfalls of it? Are there any concerns that we see time and time again that people should look out for?
I think concerns is a word that we should maybe not. I wouldn't say concerns, but maybe
Challenges.
challenges or things to look out for the future. You know, service charges. I think if when you buy a new build, they will differ after 12 months because when you first move in, they are
Competitive.
and estimated, and they may change and increase. So it's something that interest rate.
But service charges, they're not just a shared ownership problem. You get that with all new build, right?
Absolutely. So all new build properties are liable for a service charge of some sort. That could be an estate charge, a management charge, a service charge in a block of apartments. Ultimately, when we are setting up these developments, we are appraising them as they stand that day, and we put a figure on it. Now, that figure can move. We've obviously seen spikes in interest rates, inflation that have affected these service charges and management charges, which have mean that they've inflated more quickly than we thought they would. But ultimately, you can't avoid, if you want a new build property, they are going to have charges associated with them. And understanding what you're buying into. So with shared ownership, you've got the key information docs. We break down exactly what those charges look like month to month. So really, you need to be asking the questions to understand exactly what it is that you are paying for.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, isn't it? It's one of the biggest purchases of your life. It will be the biggest purchase of your life. Take the time to sit with your solicitor, understand the legalities, understand some of the costs and how they might change in the future. Leasehold is clearly one of those things, and how do you explain the leasehold piece? Because I think there's a lot of nervousness in the market about that at the moment, and it's something that clearly applies to shared ownership. And I think it's really important that we talk about that here.
And what is leasehold? I mean, we because we say this, it's the language we're using, right? We say leasehold all day, every day. But for the first time buyer, or for the person who's not even looking into buying a home, does anyone know what leasehold is? What is a leaseholder?
Great question.
Yeah. So leasehold is effectively a share of the land that something sits on. So if you consider a block of apartments, you might have 20 apartments within that block. Each leaseholder within that block will have a charge over that land that sits underneath it, and as such, you would pay a service charge to benefit from the privilege of that. Now, ground rents used to be a real thing. So actually, as a leaseholder, only just 5 years ago, you would be paying a ground rent to the owner of the land below. The difference to freehold would be, with a freehold, you own the land that sits underneath your property. Leasehold, you just have a charge over that land.
But the service charge is about value, right? It's about legacy. It's about looking after the place you live. What exactly does the service charge cover?
It will really differ depending on whether you're living on a new build home, on a development, or within a block of apartments. So within a block of apartments, you're talking about window cleaning, communal area cleaning. If you're in London, you might benefit from lovely concierge and facilities such as a gym and a spa. All of this costs a lot of money in addition to building insurance. All of the safety compliance aspect of running that block of apartments. When it comes to new build homes on a development, you're talking about maintenance of landscaping, could be the roads if they're private and non-adopted roads. All of this costs money to pull together, and ultimately also there's an administration charge for one business looking after these. So all of this adds up, and unfortunately, all of it is subject to inflationary rises, as we've all felt in our day-to-day lives.
And people just need to understand that before they buy,
Absolutely.
and what's included and how that might change.
Without a doubt. And I think if you're looking to purchase on a new build development, particularly housing, you need to understand exactly what is within the managed area scope. So is that large bit of public open space in the middle of the development, are you liable for that?
Yeah.
Because that's likely to put a premium on what it is that you're paying for. But also you do benefit from that.
And I think people need to understand that it's not just shared owners. It's all owners grouped under the same umbrella who are liable, or who are expected to pay service charge, So it's not just, I think at the moment there's this massive stigma with shared owners having to pay masses on service charge, etc. It's not just shared owners, it's leaseholders in general.
I think it's important to note, you buy a share of the property, so you might buy 25%, up to 75%, but actually you pay 100% of the management charge, and that does people don't realise that sometimes when they buy. So it's important to know that, but equally you're benefiting from 100% of the amenities. So that in many ways is right, but it's important just to remember that when you buy.
But also, as a shared owner, you are treated as a homeowner.
Definitely.
Right? You are not. You're not going to be treated as a second class homeowner. You are a homeowner. You own your property. Yes, it's part of it, but you are a homeowner in that building.
Yeah, and there's many benefits that come from that. But what are the key benefits for you guys?
It's security of tenure. We're currently living through a market where lots of buy-to-let landlords are exiting the market. So readily available rental properties are few and far between, unfortunately. You've got a lot of people that are in rented properties that are being served notice. You will not be left in that position if you purchase through shared ownership. You have entire security of tenure. Whether or not your landlord changes, you own your stake in that property, and so nobody can evict you. But also you get the freedom to behave as though this is your own home. There's no,
For as long as you want to.
absolutely,
No one's going to force you out unless you want to move. I think that's what it is with renters, right? Do I need to move in the next 12 months? Do I need to find some? How much do people spend on removal fees and moving home?
Not just that though, it's rent increases. We've lived through a market now where actually rent increases have been absolutely extortionate. When you're purchasing a shared ownership home that you can guarantee by tracking RPI, what your rent increases are going to be.
Mhm.
And really, when we're selling a new home to you, we want to stress test exactly what that's going to look like over the next 5-year period to make sure it's affordable and comfortable for you.
Yeah, and understanding the financials up front
Mm.
is a really important part of any home journey, right?
Absolutely.
And I think what advice would you give to people who don't know what they can afford at the moment? They want to buy a house, but they don't know where to start.
Talk about it.
Mm.
Go seek advice. Come to home shows like the Share to Buy show, or
Yeah.
have a listen to podcasts about, as we're doing now, just trying to educate yourself. I think just being armed with all that information up front, do your research like you would to go on holiday. With TripAdvisor, everything, restaurants to go out on a Friday night. Why not do that for the biggest purchase of your life?
I think as well, everybody has to start their journey somewhere. So if this is something that you're considering, you don't know if it's, within the realms of possible, go and speak to someone.
Yeah.
Head into a marketing suite, go to Share to Buy, have a look, see what you think might tick all of your boxes, and then start the journey there. They'll be able to refer you onto a financial advisor. You'll be able to have a discussion about your income, your outgoings, roughly what deposit you might need, and then go and speak to your family and friends around you and try and raise that deposit. And hopefully you're then one step on the journey to home ownership, and you'll have an understanding of where you need to get to deposit wise, income wise. If you need to, change around some of your outgoings, you will at least have an idea of where you need to get to make it happen.
Yeah. And I think I've always said, you've got to understand the financials up front. And I think
Definitely.
on another one of these, we're going to be speaking to Anthony from Sensio, who I know you guys use, and speak to financial advisors, find a trusted independent financial advisor who specializes in mortgages, and pick their brains on exactly how the scheme could work for you. Could we just talk for a minute about the deposit? I think this is a really sort of key part of the scheme. And the part that really opens it to so many more people than that would be able to afford on the open market. Reg, could you just take us through the deposit and how that works?
Well, unlike open market, where you would have to pay a percentage of the full market value, shared ownership, you're only paying a minimum percentage, usually 5%, but it varies across all developments and all house builders, on the percentage that you're buying. So if it be 10%, which is the lowest share that you can buy across most developers in most regions, it'll be 5% of that 10%. So it's sometimes it could be like 3-4 grand. And like I said before, that would be your 6 months rent up in advance for most rents in London or in or Greater London.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for? Right? Like,
And buying a house is a long term thing, right? It's a massive commitment. What does shared ownership look like in the long term? How can it change over time? If you start with a 30% share, can that be increased? Can you change things? And then how does it work when you sell her?
If you're looking at a new build shared ownership property, you'll fall under a lease that allows you to staircase within 1% increments. There are partner businesses within this industry that facilitate that and make it very, very simplistic. But ultimately allows you to do that fee-free and without an amended valuation. So really, really obtainable for people year in, year out who put a little bit away each month or maybe get a bonus to just incrementally increase those shares. If that's not something that is possible for you, you do then have the flexibility to buy larger shares. So it's a minimum of 5% tranches, and you can just incrementally purchase more and more shares in your property, which in turn brings your rental commitment down. So longer term, fantastic way of looking at shared ownership as a facilitator to getting you to final staircasing, owning that 100% of the property.
and it sounds complicated and quite transactional, but your provider, your housing association or your developer will always be there to support you along that journey. So it's all about having open conversations, saying, "Hey, you know what? I've had a pay rise. I've had a bonus. I can afford to buy maybe a 1% share. What does that look like? What does that mean for
Yeah.
me?" And so it's being open, letting your provider or housing association know that I've had a change in circumstance. what can I do? You know, I want to
Mm.
better myself. I want to better my position. It's just having conversation.
I think in addition, buying the largest share that you can at the time that you purchase that home is vital for that reason. So really, as much as, the new lease bought out a 10% share, that opened up the market to people. You want to be pushing to buy the largest share that you possibly can to put yourself in the best position moving forward for staircasing, for getting to that 100% ownership if that's something that you are committed to doing.
And it's important to say, guys like yourself,
Mm.
developers, housing associations, you have people on site, on the end of the phone, on the end of an email, who can help with this stuff, right? You can give advice.
It's not just about buying a home. We kind of sign the paper, you complete, hand over the keys, and it's done. Absolutely not. We're there for the entirety until you move in, post completion. We're there with all your defects, as well as your life changes. We're on the phone. All you need to do is just pick up the phone, send an email, text, WhatsApp, whatever form you guys feel comfortable with. We are here to help you.
You're going
and
to be
support
getting a
you.
lot of agony on text and email now. And I think it's important to say that, as with everything with a house purchase, it's so important to do the due diligence, understand it. You've talked about 1% increments. That does change with old leases, and there are things out there that vary, and there's different, in different areas, things can change where you can't staircase 100% of the way out. So, it's got to be for people to really sit with their solicitors, their developers, their housing associations, and make sure they understand it and how things can change over time. Welcome to Quickfire Shared Ownership. We're going to debunk the myths of shared ownership and understand it nice and quick. We've got Jen and Reg here from Places for People. Jennifer, tell us about shared ownership. 30 seconds.
Absolutely. So shared ownership could be for anybody. If you earn under £90,000 in London, £80,000 for the rest of the country, that's household income, not singular. Shared ownership could be for you. You can't own another home. This must be your primary residence. But ultimately, it allows you to purchase a share of a property. That could be new build, it could be resale across the country, and rent the remainder back from a provider like us at Places for People or any other, and live there forevermore.
Right, moving on, keeping it quick. Reg, tell us the benefits of shared ownership.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about moving house if you're renting in the next 6 to 12 months. Deposit, you only have to worry about 5% of the share that you're buying. So that could equate to the same amount of money that you're paying for your 6 months rent and 6 months deposit in advance. You can make your home your own, decorate however you want it. You can have a pet in most housing providers. You get a license and get permission. You get to choose and have the power to do what you want to do. Decide where you want to live, and that could be a long, forever home or temporary until you figure it out. But the power's with you.
Much more succinct than you. Lovely that was. And I think, look, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you today. But I think to finish on, tell me one thing that makes a home a home. What makes your home, Reg?
Great sheets.
Oh,
Do
yes.
love great bedding.
Yeah.
400 plus. Nothing lower than 400. Tableware and glassware. Are you joking? And hosting dinner parties when you have to have different seasonal tableware and glassware for that. And just a fan bag.
Yeah.
Just wherever I am, they need to be.
Love that.
Yeah.
Jen?
I think
Dog?
yeah, no, to be fair, the dogs. I think it's the freedom to make it your own. And it's really bringing your personality through in how you decorate it, how you place your furniture, what you've got on the walls. It's just about expressing your personality through the place that you live.
Yeah, love that. No one going to ask me?
Oh, what's your
Sure, go on, Dave.
The dog. Miss the dog when I'm not at home.
Oh.
Garage. Love a garage now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
It's not old. It's just being organised. It's being organised.
Just love being a man in a garage. Garage, dogs, wine.
Love. Wine
Love it.
cellar.
There we are. Shared ownership. Cheers.